My name is Sandra Fearon. I'm the founder of Unique Image London, which is an employability consultancy. I'm also a Unique Pathway leader at the London College of Fashion, where I teach fashion business on the foundation course.
So Sandra, we've probably met, say, about 6-7 years ago, and it was a talent education day at London College of Fashion for BAME lecturers, or BAME teachers, I should say.
Yeah.
Now you have 3 pretty huge roles. So the first one is you're a qualified lecturer. So let me get to right. You're an international preparation for fashion at London College of Fashion, is that correct?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's correct.
So if you elaborate on that for us.
So I currently teach on the international preparation for business, which is a diagnostic course for international students. So basically they have to do design, business and media. And because they're so young, they always come on the course and they always want to do design. It's like the design is the main thing. And we always say come with an open mind, because it's a diagnostic course where we'll look at your skill sets. So you'll have 6 weeks of doing each design, media, and also fashion business. And then you hand in the assignments, and then we'll start seeing where your skill sets lie. Because a lot of students, they come because they're so young. It's an international course, and it's they come in and they're thinking, they want to do design, but then when they do business, they've never done anything on business before, and it's all on marketing, buying and merchandising, branding, and they're exposed to so many different creative ideas. That they're like, wow, I didn't know I could do marketing. I didn't know you could do buying. I didn't know I could be so creative. I think they get in their heads, it's like number crunching at first. And then, so basically I teach on the business side of things. So, and then they go into their undergraduate course at LCF from there.
I see. I mean, as a designer, I kind of realized pretty on the importance of business with the design, because you can be the most talented designer in the world, but if you haven't got the business knowledge, then your design isn't going anywhere, basically. So it's really great that you're endorsing that side of the industry, because it doesn't get enough attention. And then on top of what you do, you run a business called Unique Image London.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so elaborate on what that involves.
So basically, I go across the UK and I deliver employability workshops, and also I'm contracted at LCF in their employability department and the careers department. So I do a lot of workshops for them, and across, as I said, across different universities across the UK, delivering workshops on basically how to look the part, how to dress the part for interviews, also interview techniques. What do employees look for in terms of how to behave in an interview? Even looking at a job spec, how to know what skill sets you've got. I also look at SWOT analysis. I talk about SWOT analysis. I do that on myself all the time. And people think, SWOT analysis, and I said, think about your strengths. What can you bring to the organization? And what are your weaknesses? A weakness that can turn into a strength. So think of a negative that can go into a positive. And I also use a technique where they have to think about different scenarios, that they might be thrown into a scenario, and literally how to make a negative scenario into a positive. If you work in retail, just saying that, you may have had a challenging customer, and how did you deal with that situation? And, how did you manage to make the customer feel happy? Or, I get them to think of different scenarios and also different mindsets as well. I talk about mindset, having a fixed mindset and a growth mindset in my workshop. So it's, if you go through a challenging situation, how do you deal with it? How do you deal with rejection, or how do you deal with criticism? How to take how to handle a situation. And how I do it, I tend to bring my industry stories into the workshops as well, real life situations. So the audience can resonate with me. I always get, students or alumni students that resonate with me to think, God, I've been through that situation. So how did you overcome it? And I think when you can live to tell the tale of how you've overcome it and still be positive in what you do, a lot of students have always given me positive feedback and said, your workshops have really helped me overcome, to be more resilient and to be more confident. And I also do things on confidence building as well.
Okay, nice. And your other role, which I guess is less professional, is you're a mum.
Yeah, I'm a mum. Yes, do you know what? It's a long story. And it's a long story. Actually, he's adopted. I adopted him at 8 months.
Wow.
And I was doing the PG cert at the time, and everybody thought I was like, oh my God, how I adopted him at 8 months, and I was just finishing off my PG cert, so I was studying as well. I wanted to give back because I knew where it was coming from. It was a challenging background. And so I thought, right, okay, I'm going to take, I can provide a home and stability. And it was funny because I was doing some part-time hours at the London College of Fashion to do with the PG cert. And again, I had a really horrible experience with one of the course leaders, and then another department took me under their wing and said, oh, Sandra, come and work for ours. And they offered me, one of the unit pathway leaders was leaving, and they said, Sandra, come and work for us, there's a job going for a unit pathway leader, we'd love to have you on board. And I remember looking at the course leader thinking, I said, I love doing part-time for you, but I can't take this job on. And she looked at me really crazy going, I'm offering you a job. And I said, you know what? I'm taking on a different responsibility, and I'm going to take on a child 8 months. And I didn't factor that in to my work. And she said, you know what, Sandra, I think it's amazing what you're doing. And she goes, I still want you to take the role. She says, I want you to come in as a 0.6, do what hours suits you, and then we'll work around it and we'll bring other people to help you. And I was thinking, who does that in a job? No one does that. And, since then, I've been there on that department ever since. It's been like 4 years I've been on the department. She's supported me 100%, and it's been amazing.
Yeah,
so,
it's incredible. So you've got like 3 full-time roles there. Kind of juggling. And you also used to be a fashion buyer, is that correct?
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
So tell us about your experience in that field.
It wasn't a very good experience. Well, basically, when I did my BA at London College of Fashion, and when I graduated, I got a job straight away in the industry. God, it was about 20 years ago. Don't want to say my age, but it was 20 years ago, and it was at BHS. So I started working with the merchandisers. So I had free reign. We got on really well. I really got on well with the department. We used to do go to all the director sign-off meetings. All the supplier meetings, make sure all the samples are delivered on time, and, deal with the suppliers abroad. So it was quite a hands-on role, but also I was able to go in the sign-off meetings and the directors' meetings and, give advice on what's the range I thought, the styles that would suit the range and things like that. So I was really happy and enjoyed it. For the first 8 months I was there. And then they took a new buyer on board after a year, a senior buyer. I mean, I was just a buyer's assistant. So they got a senior buyer on board. And as soon as she came on board, it was like she made my life hell. She was just like, she didn't like me, or because I used to get quite a lot of attention at work because of the way I dressed. Everybody used to be like, oh my God, your shoes are amazing. You're always wearing nice shoes and clothes. And I would always play it down, like, go away from my hands, like, you're going to get me into trouble, kind of thing. Because I didn't like the attention. the way I dressed was just for me. It wasn't
Yes.
really for anybody else, and it wasn't to gain attention.
Mm.
So I was quite shy. And so, but she didn't like it. She could see that people would always ask my advice on
Right,
stuff, and
so-
she didn't like it. So when she came on board, she literally started to strip all the title that I had, all my responsibilities. I had a really hands-on role, and literally she'd say, "Oh, you don't really need to go into that buyers the sign-off meeting. They don't
Right.
really need you. Can you just get a rail together? I'm going to go into the directors meeting." And then I stopped, in terms of working with the suppliers. It was just, my job became mundane. It was
Okay.
just a desk job where I
Right.
was going out, I was doing competition shopping.
Right.
It was literally, she stripped me of my role, and it was just to make me just literally just crumble. And,
Right,
and she did a good job, because I was crumbling. I stayed there for like 3 years. I remember on my my second year of my appraisal, actually before that, I took her aside because my friend's mom, I mentioned what was happening to me at work to a friend's mom, and she said, "Sandra, you need to say something to her. That's a form of bullying." And then I took her aside, and I said to her, "Have I done anything to offend you?" And I think for me, I didn't really want to rock the boat.
Right,
I was always
sure.
wanting to just get on and pursue in my career, because I was so passionate about what I did. And then she was like, "Yeah, let's start again." And then we'd start again for a couple of weeks, and then she'd do the same things to me. And it had an impact on my health. I didn't sleep for 6 months to a year. I literally had to go to citizens advice. And then I remember I went to HR about it. And prior to that, I had my appraisal, and I remember writing on my appraisal, it said, "What are your career aspirations?" And me, being gullible, I just said to become a junior buyer, then a senior buyer. And they were my career aspirations. And she literally said, "You need to delete that off your page." And I thought, okay, why? I couldn't understand. So I just did what she told me to do. And I didn't challenge her on it. I just did what she told me to do. But then it's, as I said, it just became worse, where every day I'd walk in, after a while, she never said good morning to me. It'd be just like, "Email me, get a rail together." So it was like, I felt deflated just going in, like I was just like deflated. Hence it had an impact on my health, not sleeping. Then, I took it to citizens advice, and they introduced me to a solicitor who said, "You know what, I actually believe what you're telling me." They took my case, and then I got signed off at the doctors as well. And I remember the nurse saying to me at the doctors, she said, "Sandra, I believe everything you're telling me." She said, "Don't go back there, we'll sign you off." They signed me off. And then I decided I knew one of the owners, who was Richard Caring at the time, because I'd met him at a wedding before I started at BHS. And he knew my character, and he'd always in the sign-off meetings, he'd always acknowledge me and go, "Sandra, what's your ideas on this?" So I decided to send him a letter, just send him an email, write him a letter, and just tell him, "Look, I'm really, thank you for giving me the opportunity, but this is," and told him what was happening, because he didn't know. And he apologized on the company behalf. And he said, "I'm so sorry you had to go through this." He said, "I wish you'd have opened your mouth and said something earlier, because I probably would have done something, would have been able to help you." And as I said, because it was going through, it went to a tribunal, there was not a lot he could get involved with, so I decided to leave. A company apologized, and I got a payout. But after that, it was just impossible to get a job.
Right, I see.
2 years later, I was.
What did they badmouth you?
I don't know what it was. I was just applying for jobs, and I couldn't understand 3 years of experience and not getting a job. I was just I remember keeping all the rejection letters, because I thought, you know what, I need to keep all this. So I kept the pile of rejection letters for the 2 years that I was unemployed. And then, as I said, everything just had an impact on my health, totally.
Wow,
and then I remember going to Fashion Retail Personnel, which is a recruitment company, just off Oxford Street. And they said to me, I told them I was looking for a job, and they turned around and said to me, "Oh, actually, we've got a job here." And I said, "What is it?" And they said, "Well, basically, you'll be looking for jobs for people in buying and merchandising." And I looked at her and I thought, "Are you serious? Like, that is the role I want to go into, and I have to find somebody a job in the role that I want to do." It felt like a punch in the face to me. But then I kind of thought, in my mind, do you want to be unemployed still? You've been unemployed for 2 years. Take the job and just take the job and see how you go. And so when I took the job, I wasn't really thinking at the time. But then I kind of thought, you know what? There's so many employers here that I didn't get a job with. And I decided to master all the job specs in terms of what do they look for, what do recruiters look for. And then I was also matching up clients, the people that were signed on our books in terms of looking for jobs, matching up their CV to the job specs and the requirements. So I became good at that, finding the right pairing the two up. And then I started interviewing candidates as well in terms of prepping them for interviews. So that I did a year of that, but I was getting people in jobs all the time. I was getting, for the year I was there, I was making a lot of commission, but it wasn't what I wanted to do, if you see what I mean. It was like I'd mastered it, but then I wanted to get back in the industry myself. But I got a random call after a year later of doing that job, and it was a recruitment company, Hudson and Walker. I remember it now. They called me. They were like, "Sandra, we've got an amazing role that we think that would fit you." And they said, "What do you think of wholesale?" And I said, I've got skill sets that match that. I said, because my buying side, because I'd worked with suppliers, I said, I can use the same skill set and go into wholesale. And it was a wholesale executive in the customer service side. So it was dealing with samples, and it was Dolce & Gabbana. So it was basically I'm liaising with the buyers. They're coming in the showroom. Me working, literally looking after the whole thing from when they come in, they choose the samples, looking after their orders, sending out their order confirmation, getting it confirmed and signed, dealing with the warehouse, shipping, all of that, and became a master. I went for the interview and I got the job. The director loved my personality. I was just down to earth. I was just me in the interview. I thought I can't be anything else. And I said, I'm just a people's person, and this is what I can offer you. This is what I can bring. And he said, "You know what?" So I remember he said to me as well, it was quite weird. Same thing as the course leader just reminded me back. He said to me, "I really love your personality, and I know you can bring a lot to the organisation, but we can also teach you a lot. And what you don't know, we will actually teach you." And I was like, "Oh my God." And I remember when I went for the interview, went for the first interview, and the second interview, the director from Milan was supposed to come over and interview me, and then they couldn't come over, so they sent me to Milan for the second interview, and I got the job. So and then after that, I was 20 years, about 15 years in wholesale. Probably 15 years. My last job in the industry was Jimmy Choo International Wholesale, and then decided it's not for me. I need to come out. I'm passionate about. I was delivering my workshops as well at the same time with Unique Image London, my employability workshop. So I decided to follow my passion in that side of things.
Nice. So you mentioned off camera that you're from Derby, right?
Yeah, cool. From Derby originally.
So describe kind of Sandra growing up in Derby. as a child and then how you transitioned to the woman that you are today? Are there many similarities or not?
Yeah, I would say, as I said, well, growing up in Derby, my mum, she was into fashion. My mum had loads of clothes, by the way, but she also was good at dressmaking. She should make all her dresses.
Yeah.
And I remember at 7, my mum always wanted to dress me. Like, she'd always dress me up, and I would always take off what she and change it, take off the item and I'd change it slightly. And I remember she actually bought me these shoes. I'll never forget. They were blue and cream. And she bought me these shoes, and I was like, Mum, I'm not wearing those shoes. And she was like, you're so disobedient. But I just knew I was like, there was always that element of styling myself as a young child at that age. I was always different. Styling, I loved fashion, and I knew I enjoyed fashion and people. And then between that, I was always styling my friends. And people would always say, you always got an eye for fashion, you need to do fashion. So when I left Derby, I literally was working. I remember leaving Derby, I was working part-time. I met a friend. She was graduating from the arts, and she got into working for MTV. And then she got me into styling. I was styling her. I was styling her on all her projects for her interviews. So my name became big out there because it was quite, I used to go to all the music industry parties. And she'd always say, she'd interview a lot of A-list celebrities, and it'd be like, oh, this is my stylist, Sandra Fearon. So my name kind of got known out there a little bit. And then I did, I was working for Elle Magazine. I did a 6 months internship at Elle Magazine. And I remember my last project at Elle Magazine was working with the fashion director. I worked with Donna Wallace, and we styled Faith Evans together. And that was my last styling for Elle Magazine. And I still have all the cutouts and everything. So, yeah, I mean, it's, as I said, from a child, it's emerged from working in fashion, but my thing is now is giving back. I faced challenges in the industry, and I had a heart of what can I do to give back, and I felt my passion was the employability. Where did I get challenges in terms of in the fashion industry? The challenges that I faced, I'm now giving back to students and telling them the skill sets that I taught on. And understanding the industry in terms of what do recruiters look for, how to look the part, how to dress the part, how to deal with rejection, also how to bounce back and be resilient. My main thing is being resilient and being opportunist. When I speak to students, I'm always talking about passion and being an opportunist, even if I remember my first ever business project. I went to an event at LCF, and I'd been working with different organisations doing my employability workshops, but it was my first break into LCF. And I remember I went to an event. It was Frances Corner. She hosted the event, and David Lammy, and they were speaking about looking the part and dressing the part and bridging the gap for students. And I remember sitting in the audience, and I was like, I was really nervous, thinking, oh my God, they're going to network at the end and I've got nothing to bring. What about, I'm so nervous about speaking. And then literally at the end of the event, we had a chance to network. And I was speaking to lecturers, and they were like, oh, we read your bio. And I was thinking, oh. And then I did it. I was thinking, oh, where did you see that? And they said, we saw it when, we saw a write-up on your bio, and I was a bit surprised, taken back. Then I just decided to speak to David Lammy at the time, and I said, gosh, what you were talking about resonated with me in terms of, when you get students to come to your business, is how to look the part, how to dress the part, how to conduct yourself in the type of career you want to go into. And I said, these are the workshops I literally do. So I was telling them a little bit what I did. And then after that, I just picked up the courage, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to talk to Frances. And I was with my friend at the time, and I literally said, hi, my name is Sandra Fearon. And she looked at me really stunned. Just go, who is this girl? And her PA was looking at me, and I said, "Hi, my name is Sandra Fearon." And I said, "Do you know what you were talking about, bridging the gap for students?" I said, "Do you know what? If you give me an opportunity to come in your organisation, I could really transform the student's life." I said, "I do employability workshops, and I literally pitch myself for 60 seconds." And then she looked at me really stunned, and she said, "Oh, thank you for coming." I went to work the next day. I remember I was working for FitFlop in wholesale. I got an email the next day from her PA going, "We want your business to come in and start delivering your employability workshops. We've put all the deans in copy." I nearly fell on my chair at work. That was my first ever break into doing my employability workshop for LCF before I started doing the PG Cert. I pitched my own business in there. So yeah, it was crazy.
The thing with Frances Cornet is that I probably respect her most out of all the deans at LCF because she was the first person I heard speak. She was the first white woman I heard speak about cultural appropriation in the fashion industry. And I remember sitting in that kind of talk, and I was just amazed because no one had ever broached that subject before, and immediately I just thought the whole fashion industry is going to make a change because of women like her in her position. I guess not being afraid of tackling those kind of topics and trying to make a change. So hearing your story about Frances, it makes sense in terms of what I know of her and her drive to change things.
Yeah, no, she was amazing, and even our paths crossed as a business. And then I came and did the PG Cert, and she didn't really remember me when when we were there. She didn't really remember me, but I just played it down. No, I played it down, and then I had the worst experience. You had to do, you had to work on a BA course, and I chose BA fashion management. And the course leader was a nightmare. She literally the night before, we're co-teaching to work together. She sent the presentation the night before at 6:00, and it was just like I remember thinking why she sent it the night before, and one of the heads of the course had to get involved and challenge that. And then when I got in, the first day I was teaching with her, co-teaching, I sat there, and normally, obviously, you'd introduce, you'd say, "This is Sandra Fearon, we're co-teaching together." So anyway, I walked in, and she said, "Oh, sit there." And we started the class, and she didn't introduce me. So I'm thinking, when is she going to introduce me? Because they're going to think, who the hell is this woman? And my stomach is churning. So then literally she continues teaching, and then she goes, "Oh, we're going to do an exercise." I just got up. I said, "My name's Sandra Fearon. I'm co-teaching with this person." And I just said her name. And I said, "I just wanted to introduce myself." And so the students could know when they were doing the exercise, I was going to come round and help them. Because if I'd have just come around and helped them without the introduction, but it was like a battle. It was like a battle. And we kept having these battles, and it was deja vu coming back to me from BHS. How did I deal with it at the BHS? I wasn't vocal enough that time, and I didn't speak up for myself. I didn't want to rock the boat, and it was like it literally everything I went through came back to me. Not at that split, it came back to me, and then because she did it to me, she did something else to me another time. So at the end, we had a break, and she goes, "Oh, sorry, Sandra, about not introducing you." And I said, "You meant to do that." So I kept pulling her up on things, and I said, "No." And what she wanted to do was knock my confidence. She goes, "When they come back off the break, you can teach." So obviously my confidence was knocked from the beginning. So if I'm going to teach, it's like, when you kind of not had. Literally, I felt physically sick in the morning because she didn't introduce me. And I could feel the battle. And then that happened, and then something else happened to me. So then Aisha Richard took it on board, and then I was my case was a case study, and this is the challenges you're facing.
Yeah.
And you've done the teaching within program. It's all the middle management that are causing the problems, because we're coming in and it's like they don't want to see that.
Right.
It's like, but I said to that course leader that was giving me problems, I said to her, do you know what? There's more coming in. If I have to wear the t-shirt and go through the challenges, then I'm going to make sure I do, because I've got to make it easier for the next lot coming in. Now there's this teaching within 7, and the challenges are not so bad now. So it's like the first lot we kind of had challenges. So and at the time I was able to, I think how I handled that situation differently, it was like 20 years ago flashing back to me of what happened. What I did differently then, I spoke up for myself, and whether they gave me a job or not in the industry, I just thought, no, it's not about not rocking the boat. It's about speaking out. And I kind of felt like, this is what I needed to do as a person to build my confidence, because I didn't speak up for myself, because I was always trying to fit in and not rock the boat. And as I said, it wasn't about that. It was about speaking up. And then when I spoke up, loads of people around the university, I was like the voice of. They were saying, oh, can you bring this happening, that happening? And I was like, so many other people, they goes, we really admire your courage, because they were already working in the organisation, going through challenges, but they were too scared to speak. So now they were speaking up for themselves. And it was like, I opened a floodgate of people being able to speak up about the challenges that they faced and everything, which was amazing. I kept meeting people. It was so strange. I was meeting people and they were going through challenges, and they were like, oh my God, we've heard that, what you've done, and it's absolutely amazing. And now I'm actually speaking up.
So in terms of, like, you've got a pretty illustrious career, what would you define as making it? What does that look like to you?
Making it, do you know what? Making it in the industry is about putting a smile on somebody else. It's not about it's nice to hear the feedback when you get positive feedback of, I kind of think, wow, I've had an impact on somebody else. So making it is about being able to make a difference. And that's what I want to do in terms of making it. It's not the money comes, I think, when you're doing what you enjoy and you're sowing into others, you're serving people, the money will come eventually. And I can see that doors are opening. I had an opportunity to work, to collaborate with Tiffany and Co. And that was amazing. And people were starting to hear, and I was like, wow, I'm like, I'm working with brands now. So for me, doors are open, because when people started to come to my workshops, they were like putting my name forward for different brands. And I was just like, wow, I think brands that I wouldn't even think of. So for me, as I said, it's about putting it out there and helping others. And and I know the money will come eventually.
So like, what one line of advice would you give to like a younger Sandra?
Definitely follow your passion, and also don't let people crush your spirit in terms of what you're really passionate about doing. Maybe what happened to me was a diversion of what I should be doing. I don't know. But my thing is, follow your passion, follow your heart. And, if you believe in something, go for it. And don't let other people talk you out or, in a job, or try and dissuade you from something you're really passionate about, and also, I always say, be an opportunist, take opportunities, push yourself, and, speak up for yourself as well. Sure. I think that would be my voice. That would be my advice to my younger Sandra. If I could go back, that would be it for me.
Okay. And like, what does a day off look like for you?
A day off. I don't have a day off at the moment, because I'm doing my MA, which is like, I think after this study is over for me.
What's your MA in?
It's art and design and research methods.
Okay.
So what I'm doing it in is how to build strategies in terms of resilience for students to be able to have strategy to overcome employability barriers.
Right.
So I'm looking at resilience as a topic in terms of how to be resilient. So I'm trying to come up with an intervention that the university can use, because I get a lot of feedback from the students saying it should be part of the curriculum.
Yeah.
It's not really part of the curriculum. It's just they get you in to deliver on Graduate Futures Week and different events. But my thing, if it's embedded in the curriculum from dot day, even from foundation, when they go to interviews, they'll be already built and resilient, ready to when they graduate, ready to go for an interview. What they tend to do is do it at the end. When students just about to graduate, they put all these workshops on. How is a student supposed to remember all this information, go out there? If it's built into the curriculum, it's already built in. Even if it's an hour workshop, once a month, constantly, that building that, interview techniques, strategies, SWOT analysis, mindsets, going in, thinking about stuff from foundation. They're ready to go when they graduate. They're already ready to go. So my thing is trying to build a strategy on resilience into the curriculum. A workshop that they could do once a month. So we'll watch the space. We'll see if they could change the curriculum.
So what else would I guess viewers expect to see from Sandra in the future? Because you just mentioned the workshops, right?
Yeah.
What else is in the pipeline?
Do you know what? For me, it's once I think because I've had to put a lot of things on hold with my MA because I'm doing my dissertation. So I've got 2 months to go, but it is challenging. And also I've got a little one. He's going to be 5 in 2 weeks' time. So it's having time to, do the family things as well. So my thing is, I think come beginning of next year, I want to launch out and go international.
Okay.
Start hitting the international schools and universities. My plan is international.
Okay, cool. Well, Sandra, it's been really great hearing your story. There's certain parts that you've shared with us today that I had no idea. And it's been really inspiring hearing your journey.
Thank you.
I just want to end up the kind of interview just with some on a light-hearted note. Some quick A or B type questions. So first one, Balenciaga or Burberry?
Balenciaga.
Okay. I have to ask you why, because you're a fashion.
Do you know what? A bit of both, because a bit of Burberry is classic as well. Yeah. And then I have a bit of Balenciaga, so I'm like,
Okay, so Balenciaga. Cool. Beyonce or Whitney?
Oh, Whitney. The classic. I think, classic, isn't she?
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Lifetime supply of makeup or lifetime supply of hair products?
Hair products. Okay. Yeah, I think,
R&B or Afrobeats?
Afrobeats.
Okay. Going into education after college or skipping education, going straight into work?
Do you know what? I skipped university. Basically, I did my studying as a mature student.
Right.
I skipped in. I hated studying. Okay. I wasn't a study person. My mum was like, get your qualification, get your degree. I was like, no. Yeah. I just literally went into retail. So I started working and I worked myself up in retail in terms of, working on the shop floor for different brands. And, built my way up in the industry that way. But then I take what I've learned in the industry as I've got great customer service skills. Like I'm so on point with customer service skills. So I think it's a difficult one because my little one, I'll try and get him to go to university. But, you know, that's every parent. They want you to go to university, don't they? But I didn't do it that way. But I've got all my qualifications now. And it's funny because my mum says to me now, you see, I've been telling you years ago, you should have done your qualifications. I said, Mum, everything has its time. Everything. I wasn't ready then. I'm ready now. I can take it seriously. I'm getting the grades that I probably wouldn't get now. So, yeah.
Okay. So what's that? Is that like not going through education? That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
All right. A well-paid job in a toxic environment or low-paid job and it feels like heaven every day.
Been through that. Low-paid job in a great environment. I think you need to go home with great mental health because all of those issues I've worked at massive organized and they have an impact on your health. And you know, going home, you've got family, you just want to be happy. So I'd rather have a low-paid job and be happy.
Cool. Fish and chips or rice and peas and jerk chicken?
Oh, rice and peas and jerk chicken. Oh my gosh.
Apprentice or Dragon's Den?
Oh, I love Apprentice.
All right.
Apprentice, yeah.
And the last one, heels or trainers?
Heels.
Yeah.
But then I do both sometimes. But heels, heels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Sandra, thanks again. We will include all of your kind of social media website links in the description below. And thanks again for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope it came out okay.